Are we streaming yet? Are we streaming? Are we streaming? Mic test 1 2 1 2 1 2. Take my glasses off here because I don't need my glasses on for this shit. First, let me throw out a disclaimer. Why the hell does Twitch do that? Not playing those phantom ads. Anyway, you guys see the title. Like, you guys dead ass see the title. Try to throw some music on real quick. We try to match the mood. Let's see, Swamp, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I don't know, is that gonna work? Swamp. Probably gotta be quick because my laptop like to crash. But we're gonna get to it in a little bit as soon as this thing decides it wants to act right. See, we there. Hopefully y'all can hear it pretty well enough. That's good enough. So, as you see, we back on this subject. The Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection. Wow. What a collection, right? Oh, and quick disclaimer, I do have a wisdom tooth in the back of my, right here. It's kind of kicking my ass, so forgive me if I have to, you know, pause every now and then. You see me holding my mouth open like this, trying to get myself some relief on the wisdom tooth or whatever. Yeah, it's hot as hell in California, so I got my shirt off, so don't say shit. I know y'all gonna kill me with that. But even more so, I know the unyielding, undying, just blindly loyal Street Fighter loyalist, Capcom loyalist people out there, they're gonna kill me even worse. Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection is ass. It's ass. It's just pure anus. Just the whole, you know, it's ass. It's ass. I'm going to explain to you why it's ass. Because I actually spoke about this. Let me see, about like a month or so ago before this game was released. I can't remember when was the last time I talked about this. But about a month or so ago before this game was released, I'm checking on my phone. I kind of gave my opinions on the collection and why I thought it was a ripoff. Now, after confirming all this information, now that the game is released, about the games that have online compatibility, which I did mention in that video on why this game was a ripoff. You know, I received some comments, you know, more so love than hate. People understood where I was coming from, but you always gotta tackle the dumbasses out there that just, they don't seem to get it. You know what I mean? They don't seem to understand things the way that you're trying to explain it to them. So you might have to dumb it down even more, or you might have to do a more thorough explanation so that they can get it, because they just never see. You have fanboys and fangirls of these companies, you know, that just can't see when a company does anything wrong, or they just don't see them doing anything wrong. So any game that the company releases or anything that the company releases is just a godsend. You know what I mean? Just like you have the Sony fanboys, you have the Xbox One fanboys, you know what I mean? You have, you know, the fans of Blizzard and all the games that they release, even though Heroes of the Storm is like a poor man's League of Legends. People say that Heroes of the Storm is the better game for whatever reason. It's just, you know what I mean? It's just opinions it's just biased opinions. The way I'm coming to you guys is I'm coming to you as a person who's played video games since he was 3. I'm 28. I've been playing video games for going on 26 years, I would say. Forgive me if that math is a little off, but I've played every Street Fighter game with the exception of the very first Street Fighter. I've played every Street Fighter game in existence. Every one, the EX series, the Alpha series, all the Third Strikes, all the Street Fighter 2s that you see listed on here, pretty much all the ones that are in the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary collections, with the exception of the very first Street Fighter, I've played them. I was there when the games were new. I was there when the games were, still fresh. I was there for when, for all the overpowered characters and nonsense. And I was just there for all the bullshit when it was there. Who was this? And yeah, man, it's just sad to see that people they don't listen to like the little guy. Unfortunately, I'm the little guy. Unless this information is coming from somebody like, and I don't mean to throw their names under the bus like that, because I know they're credible sources. Like somebody famous. Matter of fact, I'm not going to say any names, but like the bigger YouTubers out there, the bigger faces of like Twitch and YouTube, as far as video games are concerned. When it comes to these bigger guys, oftentimes these guys are paid off by the company. So even though they may have their opinions reserved and they may draw back on the negative things that they say, they may like hold out or they may sugarcoat them. They won't be completely honest with you, because these companies pay these guys, and what that means is that they have to say nice things about the game in order to sell it, because in order to keep in business with those companies. They have to say nice things about it. Otherwise, they could possibly lose contracts. They could possibly, lose deals in the future, because word gonna get around in the upper echelon of whatever gaming company circles they may have, and they're gonna be like, oh, this guy does negative reviews of video games, and you know what I mean, just like that little high school whisper behind people back type shit. Game companies, they do that. So they have to say nice things about the game. Me, I'm not getting paid off by none of these mofos, so I can say what the fuck I want. This shit, this 30th anniversary collection, this shit is complete ass. Now, the original reason why I call this a ripoff, right, is because they gave you multiple versions of a series, knowing damn well only one of the versions within that series is even worth bothering with. Let's take Street Fighter 3 for example. Let's just begin with that, since that's like one of the least offenders. That's like one of the least worst offenders on the in the collection. Street Fighter 3 and Street Fighter 3 Second Impact, those two games had major overpowered character issues, and a number of other things. But the main thing was that a lot of the characters were very overpowered, or like a few of the characters were extremely overpowered. It was a big problem, and people, back then, mind you, this is before internet took off, because I know a lot of the kids these days, they grew up in the internet era where, you can download a patch for a video game and things like that. Back then, the only way to get a video game patch is that you had to release an entirely new game. Like you had to release a new copy. Hence the reason why Capcom is known for re-releasing games like Street Fighter 2 so much. I mean, it was more versions of Street Fighter 2 than they have on this list, but I digress. That was the way that you patched the game back then. You just re-release it as an updated version. So Street Fighter 3 Third Strike would be that version of, the series of Street Fighter 3. Since I have the latest, most balanced version, what purpose would it be for me to go back and play these overpowered, broken versions of the game? Like, why would anybody do that? Anybody with any sense, they're not gonna put these games in any tournament. They're not gonna, you know what I mean? Just like a list of things. I don't want to go down because I want this video to be very short. But it's just stupid to have the older versions of the games within a series when you have the latest version and the most balanced version in, in the collection. You know, it's like nobody wants to bother with playing them. You know, so there you go there. Then we get to the worst offender out of this. In my opinion, this is the worst offender, and I'm gonna give you a reason why. The Street Fighter 3, the entire Alpha series, right? Every last single one of these Alpha series games are trash. They're trash. Let me remind you, I played every Street Fighter game with the exception of the first Street Fighter. I played every last single one of these, so I can tell you from firsthand experience why these games were trash. You know, especially Street Fighter Alpha 3, which is like the latest version of the Street Fighter Alpha games in this collection. Street Fighter Alpha 3, I'm gonna just get right to that because, like I said, I don't want the video to be too long, so I'm not gonna give you drawn out, you know, reasons. But Street Fighter Alpha 3 was missing a lot of features in it. It was missing characters. It was missing, you know, quite a few things. So much to the point they had to re-release the game as Street Fighter Alpha Upper, with all the balance changes, all the characters that they intended to be in the original Street Fighter Alpha 3. And Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper isn't even in this collection. So they didn't even give you the best version of Street Fighter Alpha 3. You know, they didn't give you the best version of the Street Fighter Alpha games. So, you know, that's a negative right there. Then we get to, you know, the second worst offender. And that's the whole Street Fighter 2 shit. Like, look at this right here. They gave you 5 versions of Street Fighter 2. What? Why would you give me 5 versions of the same? Like, why? Like, really? Why? You know what I mean? It's like Street Fighter Alpha, like, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo is the most balanced Street Fighter game in this entire, out of all the Street Fighter 2s, the most balanced. You know what I mean? And it's like, what's the reason for, you know what I'm, like I'm not understanding this shit. Like, what is the purpose for putting 5 different versions of Street Fighter 2 in it? Like, you know something bullshit is happening right there. Like, come on, bruh. 5 different versions of a, really? Like, and again, this ain't even all the Street Fighter 2s. You know, of course, I'm glad they didn't do that because Lord knows Capcom is fully capable of doing something like that. They had a lot of Street Fighter 2 games in between that y'all don't know about this. They probably have it in like the history section of this game because they do have a history section in the 30th anniversary collection, if I'm not mistaken, to where you can go back and you can read, you know, the releases chronologically, when the year they were released, the dates that they were released in, and you know, they'll give you a little small summary of the games as well. But Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo is the most balanced version of Street Fighter 2. And again, this was the most re-released game because they had to keep patching the game. They had to keep doing that. And the only way to do it back then, again, is to release another version of the game. So you had Street Fighter 2, you have Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, you had Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting, you had Super Street Fighter 2, the new challenges, and then you had Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which is the most balanced and tournament-friendly game out of the Street Fighter 2 series. So with that being said, what would be the reason for having those other Street Fighter 2s in there? Like, you could have just put that in the history section and just left that be. You know what I mean? Because it makes no sense. You know, only 4 games should have really been in here based on what they put in here. It should have been the original Street Fighter, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Street Fighter Alpha 3, and Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. That should have been the only games in here. But the reason why they sit here and they gave you these 8 other games that are just not worth bothering with is so they can jack up the price to $40, because these are older games, right? And they just re-releasing them in today's world. So the most they would be able to sell a game like that for, as far as a reasonable price, would be, you know, would be around $40. But if they would have did right, and they could have sold this game for cheaper, much cheaper. They could have sold this game for like a good, maybe $30, $10 cheaper, $10, $15 cheaper. if they would have just took out all these other irrelevant games. These 8 games are irrelevant. The Street Fighter 2, the Super Street Fighter 2 Champions Edition, Hyper Fighting, the new challenges, those 4, Street Fighter out, Alpha 2, Street Fighter 3, Second Impact. Those 8 games right there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah, those 8 games are completely irrelevant. They're irrelevant. And on top of that, only 4 of these games has online play, which even backs up that point even more. And that's, yes, I am holding up 4 fingers. They just off the camera. You know what I mean? It's just like the more you look at shit like this, the more you just like, I'm not finna waste my money on this shit, bro. You know, anybody with any type of common sense wouldn't waste their money on this. It's only a few reasons to buy a game like this. One, if you're running, games like this, they're gonna work well for the tournament scene. Like I said in the ripoff video, and why when I gave my explanation as to why Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection is a ripoff. It's for the retro tournament scene. You're going to have people that want to play games like this. And the tournament organizers, like TOs, they see the potential in this. They see money with this. They see people coming. They see big crowds coming. I mean, one of the biggest moments in Street Fighter history was, when Daigo faced Justin Wong at EVO. I can't remember what year the EVO that was. I want to say 2005. I don't know. Like, please don't quote me on the year. But it was at EVO, back when EVO was like a lot smaller. Or was it EVO? Like, was it EVO? But never the case. It was like a legendary moment in Street Fighter history. When Daigo, he was using, I think, Ken, and Justin Wong, he was using Chun-Li. And because Daigo, he's known for using Ryu, but Ryu was like kind of terrible in Third Strike, so he used Ken off and on. But it was a moment where Daigo, where with Justin Wong, like he did, I think, Chun-Li's super. I can't remember which super it was, but it was her lightning kick super. And Justin Wong, because in this game, they had mechanics that allowed the characters to parry by, if you tap forward just about as you're about to get hit, then the character would do a parry, and you can follow it with an attack after that. So Daigo, he parried, I think, every kick from Chun-Li's super, and then he jumped in the air, did like a little 2-hit combo, and went to his own super, and he won that match between them. So it was literally one of the most epic moments in Street Fighter history. So imagine the tournament organizers, they seeing Street Fighter 3 being released again. Their first instinct and their first thought process is like, oh man, what if Justin and Daigo, what if they were to do it again? Daigo and Justin, the rematch, you know what I mean? Like that in Third Strike, you know what I mean? Like that, they see that and their eyes just pop with dollar signs. You feel me? That's them. Another moment in Street Fighter history, Alex Valle and Daigo, playing Alpha 3. Or was it the original Alpha? I can't remember, but I think it was Alpha 3. And Daigo and Alex Valle, they had a classic match, in Alpha 3. So of course the tournament organizers, they're going to see that. They're going to want to call up Daigo. They're going to want to call up Alex Valle. Let's get a rematch for that. They're going to do things like that. Especially for Alpha 3 and Third Strike. You know what I'm saying? They're going to do that. It's only a matter of time. It's like it's a known factor. Like, it's too obvious for them not to do it. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. And then you got Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, again, the most balanced version of that right there. And imagine them doing like a retro tournament with the original Street Fighter that a lot of people didn't get a chance to play, because a lot of people that's playing Street Fighter now, especially back in the 90s, they got their start playing the original Street Fighter, the original Street Fighter 2, excuse me. So a lot of us, we skipped the original Street Fighter. When Street Fighter 2 came out, that's the one that really blew up the fighting game scene. That's when you really start to see things like fighting game tournaments and things like that with Street Fighter 2. You know, and other games followed suit, like Mortal Kombat and all that. But yeah, man, it's like when you see this list of games, notice only 4 of these games have online play. So you're gonna be only bothering with 4 of these games. But the funny thing is, the original Street Fighter is not one of the games that has the online play with it. You know, you got Third Strike. I mean, I think anybody would know that one right there was going to be the one that has online play with it. Alpha 3, you know, that has online play. Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, that has online play. And then I think it was Street Fighter 2 Champions Edition, or was it Hyper Fighting? I can't remember which one between the two that I seen on a guy's stream. But it was another version of Street Fighter 2 that had online play. But it doesn't make any sense though, because if Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo is the most balanced version of Street Fighter 2, why the hell would you give another online server to another Street Fighter 2 that ain't even half as good? You know what I mean? It was versions of Street Fighter 2 where Bison's Psycho Crusher was so random, like the hitboxes on it was so random that, you know, it was basically like a gimmick, because you had to play a guessing game of whether or not the Psycho Crusher hitbox is going to hit high or low. You know, like a lot of people don't know that. Like, who the hell wants to play a game like that? You know, anybody sensible. You know, you could have easily given that one to the original Street Fighter, but I digress. You know, I'm not buying this shit. It's really not it's a waste of money. The only people who this is going to benefit, one, are the organizers of the tournaments who want to do like retro, you know, rematches and legendary rematches from the past. You have the Mugen community who, because this game does have like a sprite mode where you can look at the characters' moves frame by frame. So it's going to make it easier for them to create characters in the Mugen engine. So it's beneficial to them to get this game. Hands down, it's going to make making characters a lot easier from Street Fighter. And, you know, it's just going to be like a good investment for them. 3, you're going to have the again, like the Capcom / Street Fighter loyalists who can't see anything wrong with any type of Street Fighter or any game Capcom releases. You know, they just won't say anything negative because they just biased and blindly loyal. So that's that. And then you have, again, the pervs, who I'd say are the fourth group, because again, you could look at each character move sprite by sprite, and it was people back in the day who I'm no longer friends with, who would, you know what I'm saying, instead of just playing a game, they would literally try to like make either Chun-Li or Cammy do like a kick and try to pause the game so they can like look up between their legs and things like that. And when you can do everything sprite by sprite, look at the moves sprite by sprite, it's like you're basically giving them, you know, like the keys to the city. You know what I mean? Like, they no longer have to worry about pausing the game. They can just look and just do God knows what. But I'm not interested in this. It's a ripoff. You know, it's a good thing for nostalgia purposes, but you can't be so infatuated with nostalgia that you let a bad purchase, that you let yourself get caught up in the nostalgia and go out there and buy a game that's not worth your money. You know, this shit ain't worth it. If they would have took 8 games out of this, the 8 irrelevant games out of this game, out of this collection, and only put in the 4 games that actually matter,